Hey, it's me, Ted Santos. I'm always talking about relationships or business. And today I want to talk about business. I'm doing this article really, ultimately, it's about leadership, specifically CEOs, except any executive. You could be an entrepreneur. And ultimately, everyone is the CEO of their own life. So there are several ways to look at this. I wrote an article about this, and you can find it on my blog. I'll drop the link below. So if you want to see the written form of this or pass it around, you can do that. And in some ways, this video is related to an article I wrote on my blog several years ago, and I stated that uh, CEOs are going to be more people focused instead of finance focused. And that means executives would come from sales and marketing. They'll have backgrounds in psychology, social anthropology, economics, and sociology. And those executives would no longer be committed to what people call financial reengineering or buying back shares, right? So changing accounting principles or basically kind of a shell game with finance, and it ultimately makes your earnings look good, and that helps shoot your stock price up, right? So uh, it's what a lot of CEOs have become very good at: financial reengineering, including laying people off, restructuring debt, all of that kind of thing. But if we look at CEOs in the future who become more people focused, they would actually be able to stand for mining untapped intellectual capital. And what they would do is they would leverage an organization's number one asset, which is human capital, people. Everyone says they do that, but how do you really tap into untapped capital? That everyone has it, and untapped intellectual capital. Everyone has a talent and skills that could be transferable that's not being used in the workplace. And not every leader knows how to pull that out of a person and get the most out of them. So one path to get there is CEOs who master chaos. And so that's going to sound counterintuitive, but one job of a CEO is to intentionally create problems that the organization solves. And if your CEO is not intentionally creating problems, he should be fired or retrained. Once they know how to create intentional problems, they next need to be able to create an environment where high performance is a natural part of corporate culture. And within high performance is the acceptance of failure, not failure in a reckless way. It would be failure in kind of an experimental, innovative way. There's a product called Post-its. Everyone knows Post-its, those little sticky notes that you have. Well, Post-its isn't a perfect example of something that a failed product. The guy who was trying to make a glue that would be the strongest glue in the world turned out to be really weak, and they started using it around the company 3M, where they put the weak glue on paper and post it up on different things. And they said, hell, we can market this. Now, hell, that failed project is generating about $2 billion a year for 3M. So perhaps what we have is an incorrect relationship to the word failure. And we may also have an incorrect relationship to other words like chaos and problems and disruption and breakdowns. We try to be more politically correct and subtle and use words like challenges and obstacles to overcome. And I'm using chaos, problems, disruption, and breakdowns. We don't have a great relationship to those words. And on the surface, we've been taught to avoid those words. And when they do happen, chaos happens, it's customary to find a scapegoat and then blame him. At the same time, if we look at business and we look at people like John D. Rockefeller Sr., Henry Ford, Howard Hughes, Tom Watson Jr., Steve Jobs, and there are many, that's a long list of other people who have disrupted industries and changed our lives forever. Those men were leaders who created problems for the corporation to solve. And when staff and management solved the problem, a breakthrough was produced. When you look at Steve Jobs, that guy had his people put 1,000 songs into a portable listening device. That had never been done. People were listening to Walkman with a cassette or a disc in it. When those 1,000 songs were put into a device, we call it an iPod. And then Jobs created another problem and said, well, take that iPod and turn it into a phone, a smartphone. And hell, in 1990, no one projected that Apple computer would be a top seller of cell phones. They just didn't, not even in 2000. So, with that said, what am I saying? In the past, the most effective CEOs were great at creating problems for the organization to solve. They were disruptive leaders who created an innovative and nimble environment. And when a company has that kind of culture, they're more capable of dealing with constant change. And we look at today's environment, and hell, the last 20 years for sure, there's been constant change. And a lot of companies are not good at dealing with that. So when pandemics or economic changes destroy businesses, the nimble organizations find new ways to grow. And if you look at the uh, economic disaster we had in 2008, Apple computers still grew. And it wasn't just selling iPods, it was the phone, it was accessories, it was laptops, desktops, and services. So those leaders understand that problems and chaos happen. Those things happen. It's not chaos that's the problem. It's how you respond to chaos that creates a problem. So if you fear it, you run or avoid it, right? If you're getting tackled and you don't want to get hit, you just lay down, right? But if you keep a stable mindset in the face of chaos, you're going to be more likely to see opportunities. And so this is one reason that's beneficial for executives to be trained to effectively manage chaos. To manage chaos, you really need to master self. And when you have self mastery, or you're constantly working towards it, you can intentionally create problems for those around you to solve. Self mastery allows you to effectively navigate yourself and others through chaos. And remember, who's the CEO of your life? A lot of people are afraid to intentionally create problems in their life, or for those around them. So you see, with that kind of training, it doesn't matter if the CEO creates the problem or the competition creates it or the economy creates it, right? So your competitors can disrupt the market and create chaos for you, or the economy can go bad, which creates problems for lots of people, which, we've seen the pandemic wipe out many businesses. So I want you to consider this. For some reason, the titans of the past, like the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and the Howard Hughes and the JP Morgans and many other people, Walt Disney of the past, they intuitively understood to create problems for their people to solve. And as a side, while many of those titans achieved extraordinary results, they generally did not follow the path of what they call emotional intelligence. See, they knew how to get the most out of their people by stretching them further than they would have known how to do on their own. See, think of an Olympic athlete. If you're a trainer for an Olympic athlete, you're not trying to be their friend. You want to get more out of them than they know how to get out of themselves. And see, that's a very different commitment as a leader, as a trainer, than trying to be the guy everyone likes. So when the best leaders do their job really well, their people will say they did it themselves, as though the leader wasn't even there. So If leaders, and even leading your own life, if you could see that stretching yourself is not the friendliest thing to do for yourself in life and others, even your significant other, whether you're married or cohabitating, whatever, the being afraid to stretch people causes you to avoid the chaos. So going forward, leaders of the future will have to learn from the top leaders of the past. They'll be people focused. The leader's job will be to get the most out of people and provide them the resources to get the job done. And since there are so many examples of disruptive leaders, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. How are you developing yourself in self mastery? How are you developing yourself to be effective in the face of chaos? As I've already said, chaos is really not a problem. It's something that's happening. And so when you start stretching your people beyond what they know how to think, what they know how to do, you're not their best friend in that moment. You're someone who's asking them to do something they don't know how to do. And they may actually look foolish in the beginning. They may not look very competent, but that's really a job of a leader. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to create breakthroughs, never be afraid to create chaos or disrupt status quo or destroy things, break them down. And I use Apple because it's a great example of how of disruption happened, and it never destroyed the integrity of them selling computers. So there are plenty of examples in the past, and someone like me who can train you to be masterful in the face of chaos and breakdowns, which means self mastery first. There are people out there who can do that. It's not about just reading books. Training and development is different from sitting back reading books and watching films and movies. It takes training, just like you want to be masterful in a sport. You physically train your mind. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about this. I know for some people at first this may sound counterintuitive, but ultimately, anyone who's going to lead themselves, a family, in small business or a large business, you need to get comfortable dealing with messy situations that change can create. To get to that breakthrough, the breakthrough is the back of the hand. The front of the hand is the breakdown, the disruption, the chaos to come out on the other side. If you avoid that breakdown, then you're avoiding that breakthrough. Like this video, share it. Want to hear your thoughts about it. And I will be back. Subscribe to my channel. I'll be back with more. Thank you. Take care and good.